If you do not like someone's story, write your own. Changing Narratives with Wambui Kabage.
Hi everyone, this is Wambui Kabage back again, discussing issues related to family conflict and couples in crisis. So, I was thinking recently how to explain this a bit better. And I came up with, or I thought through an experience that I had, and that was in relation to martial arts, which is a passion of mine. So I'm going to give you a statement that my Taekwondo teacher taught me or said a long time ago. When I asked him, I said, he's a 9th Dan black belt. And I asked him, hey, what would you do if somebody came to you and demanded your wallet? You know, he came to you and you can tell he's got, his intention is he's a thief and he has a plan, he has an agenda, and he's, put you in a space where he's demanding now, give me your wallet or else. And he said to me, I would give him my wallet. And I looked at him and I said, what? You're like a 9th Dan black belt. You could, even before he finishes that statement, you can down him, you can break him, you can do whatever. He's like, yes, that's possible. But isn't it also possible that he has cohorts who have guns around me, or cohorts who are better, who outnumber me and have more weapons than me, or whatever? And he taught me a very wonderful lesson that day, which was, yes, you have the ability to engage in a conflict in 2 different ways, right? And the first one is engage in the conflict and be part of that conflict. But the second one is prevent further conflict, right? And for me, that was a very powerful analogy because I felt that really works on our day-to-day lives. If you look at, for example, in family disputes, yes, there is 2 aspects. There's the conflict and there's the prevention. When you're in the conflict, you choose how you fight, right? You can decide you're going to go to the courts, or you can decide you're going to choose mediation. If you go to the courts, no holds barred, everything goes, and basically, as you're fighting, so do all your relationships and relations and everything. But in mediation, as you fight, or as you go through the conflict, it is not a fight. It is essentially the idea of resolving the conflict, right? And then there's another angle, which we haven't quite gotten yet to, which is prevention. Prevention is really important because at the end of the day, you as a person don't want to get into conflict. Nobody wants to get into conflict. So we need to learn how to understand not to get into the conflict. And this is what this series is going to be about, this next series, which is essentially knowing what you should and should not do to protect yourself from getting into a conflict situation. And I'll give you tools that are going to help you understand that. And part of those tools are understanding, in Kenya, we have the Marriage Act. And the Marriage Act is a 2014 Marriage Act, which came into existence. And what that beautiful act did was a number of things. But I'll just begin with the beginning, which was marriage do's and marriage don'ts. And it's really important that we understand marriage do's and marriage don'ts before we get in, because that prevents you from later on going into a space that results into conflict. And the first marriage do that we have is marriage must be voluntary. What does that mean? It means you cannot force another human being to marry you. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about arranged marriages. Even if you do arranged marriages, there should be no force involved in that. And so somebody asked me, but what's the difference between voluntary, getting married voluntarily and having an arranged marriage? So I'll give you an example. An arranged marriage is where your parents, for example, identify a person who they feel you would be properly suited to. And you say, yeah, sure, that's fine. You did not, as a person, go forth and find that individual. It was arranged. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. What is a problem is if you are forced into that relationship. And the example I give is gunshot marriages, right? Where someone comes with a gun, arguably, and that's force. It can be a proverbial gun. It doesn't have to be a physical gun. And they say, you have to marry my daughter. Or to the daughter, you must marry this man. You don't want to marry this person, and throughout the entire ceremony, you hate the process, you hate your parents, you hate the person who's forced you to marry. You just don't want to get married to this person. Now, in Kenya, you are not allowed to force anybody to get married. Okay, what does that mean? If you did get into that relationship where it was forced, that's a void marriage. That marriage technically does not exist. It's not valid. Okay, and you can actually petition the court in regards to that, specifically regarding that it was an involuntary marriage. The second point is that you must be over the age of 18. This is the law, guys. We cannot play with this. Child marriages are not allowed in this country, and that's a fact. So we must understand that the woman and the man getting married must be over the age of 18. The next point, kind of a little controversial, you must be sober, okay? And you must be in a mental state that is sober, in the sense that you must be mentally stable. And when I say it's slightly controversial is because, yes, we know people go out and binge, the night before their marriage, and, they come a bit woozy-doozy, to the marriage. Guys, you really do need to be very careful about that, because at the ceremony, you must be sober. You must not be inebriated. You must not be under the influence of any form of intoxicant. You must be sober. And that person that you're getting married to, and you who's getting married, must be at the time of the ceremony mentally stable. Okay? Also, it's critical that you as a person is aware, and they're interconnected. You must be aware of what is happening in that marriage ceremony. You must be aware. You cannot be confused. You cannot be, oh, is this, what's happening? No. Clarity, complete clarity. There must be 2 witnesses. Now, the 2 witnesses must be also sober. They must also be mentally stable. And they must be aware of what is happening, but specifically must understand the language of the ceremony. So guys, you can't bring your Korean friend, right? And the ceremony is in Kiswahili. And you're like, yeah, but that's a witness. I'm sorry, that's not a witness. They don't understand the language of the ceremony. So unless your Korean friend can speak Kiswahili, that's not gonna fly, okay? The next issue regarding the witnesses is those witnesses cannot be you and cannot be your spouse. Neither can they be the person who is officiating the marriage. Okay? So, guys, now we know that you must have a list of things if your marriage is to be valid. And that is, 1, it must be voluntary. You must be over the age of 18. You must be sober, mentally stable. You must have 2 witnesses. And those witnesses must follow the following, which is they must be sober. They must be mentally stable. They must understand the language of the ceremony. And they cannot be the officiant or the 2 participants of the ceremony. Okay? So listen, you must be wondering, okay, so marriage dues and then now the issue of conflict, how does this come in? So you see, guys, if you get married right, then you're not going to have the conflict of somebody challenging your marriage. And by the way, you will not believe me, but when I tell you, people do challenge marriages from the very beginning. There are people who are like, no, those 2 were not married. That's a conflict, right? But if you've done your checks, then that part of a conflict that is possible is averted. Okay, guys, look, I hope that has been of benefit to all of you. If it has, please share, definitely like and subscribe, and hope to see you next time where we discuss the marriage don'ts.